This new Baratza grinder, the Encore ESP Pro, as far as I'm concerned, it's nothing like the other Encores. This makes grinding for espresso or filter coffee feel easier, cleaner, and it comes with additional features that add to a more modern and better overall experience for discerning home baristas. Now, I may have come into this review with a somewhat subpar expectation, but I'm here to say that I have been pleasantly surprised by the Encore ESP Pro. So in this review, I'll aim to cover off everything about this grinder, plus add a comparison of grinders that you may well have in mind yourself going up against the Encore ESP Pro. Now, when it comes to pleasant surprises, our Brew Club loyalty program, which is free to join, will earn you points every time you shop with us. And you will be surprised at how these points can add up towards exclusive deals, discounts, and new product drops. So I'll add a link in the description down below. You can find it there. All right, let's get into the video. Starting right at the top with options, we begin with the 300 gram capacity hopper. This has a handy close-off mechanism so you can remove beans and the hopper without creating a mess. This is new to the Encore range. Without this hopper, you have a lid, and this sits on top of the funnel above the anti-popcorn screen, and this is your single dose mode for the grinder. Now here I want to skip ahead a little bit just so I can talk briefly on these setups of grinding with a hopper or grinding out single dosing, as Baratza has shown us that it is thinking about how each person uses these setups to grind out. You see, when you're using the hopper, you have timed grinding. So you hold the grinder button down to activate this, then you select your grind time to grind out, let's say that's 8 seconds, to get the amount of coffee that you're after. Press this button again and away you go. And when it comes to single dosing with the Encore ESP Pro, you have a hassle-free auto stop feature. So you just need to add your beans and press start, and then the grinder will stop automatically when the beans are all ground out. And another win from Baratza is the grind adjustment system. This is completely different from what you'd expect in an Encore grinder. Instead of that old clicky knob, you've got a stepless grind adjustment paired with a digital display. So you can dial in the grind, note the number, and this is much easier on the display to repeat it exactly. There are a total of 60 grind settings on the Encore ESP Pro, and I honestly find this system to be precise, and it provides me with much more confidence and reliability in my grind setting. As kind of bizarre as that sounds, it's like you're not having to lean in close and line anything up with one eye when you're adjusting the grind, as it's all there on the display. Now for espresso, these settings work on a scale of 1 to 40. They're also being half settings too, so really 80 grind settings for espresso, which is a huge range to work in, and great of course, because small changes can lead to big differences in the espresso flow out. So taking it, I would say 1 to 2 grind settings at a time to dial in lets you find that perfect setting. When I began using the grinder for the first time, 30 was the best setting, leaving plenty of room for more fineness if needed. Then, once you cross over from 40 to 60 range, these grind settings create a grind more coarse at each step, matching the need of any other brew method you'll use with this grinder. Now, once you remove the hopper, you'll have full access to the Burrs for cleaning and maintenance. I'll quickly point out here that Baratza have included a flow control disc sitting above the Burrs. And this is a fantastic feature they've included, as it carefully controls the flow of beans into the Burrs, resulting in a much more consistent grind quality throughout the dose. And this also avoids any issues with stalling or jamming the grinder. Now the Encore ESP Pro Burrs, these are a well-known M2 40mm conical burr set, ideal for grinding for a variety of brewing methods and offering a depth of flavour with clarity. These come with a quick release system for removing the burrs, everything being tool-free on the Encore ESP Pro. Then there is the dosing cup and the catch container. These are a carryover from the other Encore models, but they still do the job well. Simple, straightforward, and no fuss. What really sets the Pro apart is its new motor and the deionizer in the chute. The motor provides more power and it runs quieter, which makes grinding feel smoother and less of a chore. The deionizer, this is what helps tame static so you don't end up with coffee grounds clinging to every surface in your kitchen. I would still recommend RDTing if you're single dosing, but compared to the older Encore grinders, this one is much cleaner. Altogether, the workflow feels tighter, more efficient, and just more enjoyable. You're not fighting this grinder, you're working with it. All right, let's now put this into action. I've got 20 grams of espresso beans weighed out, and I'm going to put this through the ESP Pro, and this will give you a good sense of the workflow in real use. I'll set my grinder now to right where I had it when I normally dialed in my espresso, which was 30. Nice. We'll hit start and we'll go. Oh, I'm going to quickly RDT first. That's what I like to do. Too nice. Give it a shake. Voila. Stops automatically, which I love. Like, it's reasonably quiet. It's very fast, very efficient. I usually do a little couple of taps and this lid up the top also works as a bellows, but there's really no more addition that you need to add to the workflow other than you noticed I used a brush at the top just to sweep down some of those beans that get stuck from RDTing, my problem. And then we've got our grinds down here. Looking beautiful. How easy is that? Now, you're probably wondering, or maybe not, you're probably expecting these other two grinders here today. What I'm going to do right now then is dial in an espresso on each one of these grinders. I have a Sete 270. It's the WI version, but it's essentially just a Sete 270, which is, I guess, the espresso grinding upgrades from the Encore range is the Sete range. However, with this new Encore ESP Pro, let's see if it challenges it. And we have the DF54, which is a price comparative espresso grinder within this range of prices and quality. So let me jump in now. I'll dial in an espresso on all of these three. It's going to be a blind tasting and we'll come back and taste them all. Let's do this. All right, a little bit of movie magic and we're back. 3 espressos on 3 different grinders and 20 grams in, 40 grams out. 24 seconds. They all dialed in pretty well. I took a little bit extra work on the Sete, but let's recap. We've got the Baratza Encore ESP, we have the DF54, and we have the Baratza Sete 270 WI, which is essentially the same as the 270. And you might have noticed seconds ago, I had the large hopper on top, which is again very similar to the Encore hopper, but I forgot I just recently received the single dosing cap for the 270s, the Sete 270s. So I just placed that in there. It works really well. I didn't know you could, it's not about a Sete right now, but I didn't know you could single dose on the Setes. So that worked quite handy as well. And it's very similar to the Encore one anyway, as it is a Baratza. We've got 3 espressos to taste. Now I will just put these down in a second, blind tasting, so I don't know which one's which. I'll taste them each and then we'll come back and we'll do the reveal. That way you can kind of know what I'm tasting across the board and then we'll find out exactly what we're tasting. So let's get these off here right now. I don't want to stare at the espressos too much, but I also don't want to make a mess. That is done. All right, my trusty little spoon. Let's taste one at a time. First espresso up. This first coffee, really clean off the palate, very balanced, really nice sweetness and acidity at the front. It kind of moves into a bit of creaminess and chocolates in the middle, kind of like mid chocolates, so not like white chocolate and not really dark chocolate. It's kind of like milk chocolate in the middle, lingering sweetness, but nothing kind of jumping out at you. It's kind of like mid-tier espresso, like good, not great, not terrible, although that balance is really nice. the balance of sweetness and acidity up front. It's really nice. Very clean too. That's the other thing that kind of jumps out at me is although it has that complexity between the sweetness, acidity, and the milk chocolates in there with the lingering aftertaste, it's quite clean. So there's a lingeringness, but it's also kind of just drops away and doesn't leave any unfavorable flavors in your mouth, which is good. All right, next espresso. This is quite mellow at the front, whereas this had like, in comparison, this definitely had some sweetness and acidity up front that was balanced. This is like more mellow and it kind of just starts off where the body is, but it's white chocolates, which is enjoyable. Although it's not like super sweet at all. It is very smooth white chocolate kind of flavor jumping out at me with this one, whereas this didn't really, I was kind of trying to get at that. There was no real flavor jumping out at me with transparency. This has a little bit more transparency in its flavor. You can kind of feel like there's some white chocolate in this cup, which is enjoyable, but nothing in terms of sweetness or acidity. There's a light body to it. Definitely that creaminess kind of carries through to the end of the espresso. Again, quite enjoyable cup, but I think just for complexity's sake, I'm enjoying this cup right now. All right, third and final espresso. A little hint more of acidity, so it's kind of jumping out more than the sweetness. I wouldn't say it's unbalanced. There's just a more hint of acidity in this. This is milk chocolate. The body here is more like, if I have to give it a flavor note, it is more milk chocolate than white chocolate. There's a bit of harshness at the end, so that acidity kind of carries through and then kind of gets a little negative at the end, kind of lingering, dissatisfied aftertaste. Not terrible, but I'd say these are all mid-tier espressos. They're not all fantastic. They're not all terrible at the same time. So I'm going to reveal which one's which now. And it was white, yellow, blue or green. I can't actually remember which one it was now. Blue or green. White, yellow, blue or green. All right. We'll do the middle one first. That was kind of like the mid-range milk chocolate one. Green. That's the Sete 270. Interesting. All right, that makes me think that the more chocolatey one might be this one as well, because they're similar. But this was my least favorite one out of these two now. But so we'll go the good one. White. Well, the better one. I wouldn't say it is the good out of all three, but the more enjoyable one is the Encore, and that makes the yellow one the DF54. That's interesting. So more complex, but I guess the flavors weren't jumping out at me like the DF54 and the Sete 270. Now, the Sete 270 was the one that was more mellow and had a lot more milk chocolate flavor to it. And this had a little bit of brightness up front, and it had more of a, I keep saying milk chocolate when I mean white chocolate. This was more white chocolate. This was more milk chocolate. Bit more brightness up front than all three, than all the other two. And just had a different ending to it that I didn't quite enjoy. Interesting. Now, I mean, if you have a look at all three grinders, they are pretty close in price ranges, and they do definitely bring different performances and different features. Obviously, the Sete 270 has a hopper. It can single dose. This has a hopper, can single dose. This can only single dose. Timed grinding, non-timed grinding, just basically a single dose grinder in itself. You have many options with this in terms of dosing. I would say almost this would be the better filter grinder out of all three as well. And I would generally say that whatever I taste in the espresso, in my experience, has also carried over to the filter tasting. So although I could bore you with a filter tasting and come with the same results, like I said, it generally just ends up being the same, like how I taste the coffees over the filter. Now, with all of this being said, here's where I land on the Baratza Encore ESP Pro. This isn't just a small upgrade to a familiar grinder. It is a complete reimagining of what an Encore can be. And hopefully they do that to the Setis at some point. But from the workflow to the grind consistency, it feels like Baratza finally built a grinder that works for both ends of the barista spectrum. It's approachable enough for beginners who just want to pull their first espresso or brew a pour over quite easily at home, but it has the precision, the control, and the features for more experienced home baristas who will generally appreciate what Baratza have done to this grinder. Now, let's just quickly talk about small quirks because, again, no grinder is perfect. If you go a little too heavy with the RDT, the beans can occasionally get stuck in the hopper. Totally a user-created problem, but it is worth mentioning. On the flip side, if you don't RDT at all, you'll notice a bit of static. But to be fair, that's true of just about every grinder out there. Compared to other Encore models, it is dramatically better in that regard though. If I had one request from Baratza, it would have been to add a simple Bellows system to the Encore. Just that one little extra feature, although this cap kind of makes a Bellows work, single dosing with a Bellows would make it even cleaner and help push out every last bit of grind other than having to tap the grinder. Beyond that though, I think everything about the Encore ESP Pro feels dialed in. And that's really the takeaway here. For the price, the performance, and its features, this grinder is fantastic. It's quiet, it's powerful, and it's generally enjoyable to use. And, you know, considering the lineup of the Encore grinder that's been around for like years, I feel like it's the oldest automatic grinder out there. That's no small feat for Baratza to turn that around and break the mold and create a grinder as good as the ESP Pro. So thank you so much for watching till the end of this video. If you have any further questions on this grinder, add them in the comment section down below and I'll get straight back to you. Until next time, happy brewing, and I'll see you in another video.